The Chicago Bulls are 7-14, but have won 2 games in a row after beating the Bucks and then the New Orleans Pelicans over the weekend. And most notably, both of those games were without Zach LaVine, who is the hot name on the trade rumor mill right now. And this Bulls team, look, it's no secret, Chicago Bulls fans want this team to blow it up, go through a rebuild, but they are still somehow losing organically despite having all these guys on the team where a few years ago we were looking at them like, well, at least the first half of the 2021-22 season, like, oh, this could be a surprise, nice little good team out in the Eastern Conference, and then Lonzo Ball got his knee injury, and then the rest is history. The Bulls need to commit to a full rebuild, but the front office is insistent on staying competitive based on everything over the last few weeks from beat writers and reporters and bloggers who follow this team religiously. I've even seen some insane reports like the Bulls are more willing to trade Patrick Williams than Alex Caruso, which is just fucking nuts to me. I really don't even know what the front office's plan of attack is here, or more so, I should say, I don't know what ownership's plan of attack is here, because it's clear they're trying to stay competitive, yet the quote-unquote big three that they have formed with DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine clearly isn't leading them anywhere, and they're not even stuck on the treadmill of mediocrity. They are just bad, which I guess, you know, if you're just going to lose organically, I guess that's a good thing for the Bulls, but the process going into the results is fucking awful. And these back-to-back wins have also shown me that the Bulls need to blow it up and just let the young guys run free. The Bulls had, back-to-back games of 30-plus assists? These back-to-back games have shown even more reason that the Chicago Bulls should just commit to a rebuild, get as many assets as you can for good players that you do have individually on your team, and just commit to building this right, because it's very clear retooling is not going to do anything. If you look at the last 3 seasons, here's the net rating for the Bulls quote-unquote big three of DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine. This year, they're a minus 17.5. That is fucking insane. And it is, to me, it's malpractice to just continue moving forward with that big three. And even if you trade Zach LaVine, which seems to be more and more likely by the trade deadline, just simply retooling isn't going to do anything. So I don't know if the Bulls are really going to commit to a full rebuild, but if they did, here's how I would rank the assets just in terms of players I would trade away first. And if I don't have players on this ranking, that means they're players that I would keep moving forward. But it's time for the Bulls to commit to a rebuild. So let's do some fun, fake GMing here. I know everybody's going to say that Zach LaVine is going to be the number 1 guy to be traded first, and I do think that's true. But if the Bulls are serious about rebuilding instead of retooling, they need to trade Alex Caruso. And they're probably, if they were to trade him, I imagine it'd be close to the trade deadline. I don't know. But everybody wants Alex Caruso. He's one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and of course he's somebody you could trust to hit spot-up shots, and he's been shooting really well from 3 this year. Don't know if he's going to continue to shoot 47%, but like a DeAnthony Melton on my team, the Sixers, somebody that is disruptive, it can lock you down on defense, can shoot open shots, can make the connecting pass, and is on a very valuable contract. Alex Caruso this year and next year is going to make around $9 million a year. By the time the summer of 2025 hits and that contract expires, Alex Caruso's price is going to be going up. He's not going to be making $9 million a year anymore. So the Bulls need to take advantage of the contract, the player, and the fact that everybody in the league, especially contenders, want to add to their roster to make a championship push. But with the way this front office operates and their need to retool and just quote-unquote stay competitive, even though they still fucking suck, I imagine they're not going to trade him first. Which leads us to Zach LaVine, the guy who is now at the center of the trade market universe. I like Zach LaVine more than most people. I think with his skill set, if he was put on a proper team and a contender, he could be somebody who's like the 3rd option on a championship team. He is a really good shooter, one of the best shooters in the NBA, one of the better athletes in the NBA, can vacillate between going off ball and on ball. But the problem will and always will be his defense. And for the strides he's made on ball, he's still negative on ball. And then off ball, which has been his bugaboo his entire career, is still really bad. And there are definitely risks in taking on Zach LaVine. But as far as him being a number one option on this Bulls team, being the highest paid player, etc., it's time for them to part ways. It's time for the Bulls to insert some of the younger guards, like Ayo Dosunmu, for example, let Patrick Williams get more touches, and it's just time to move on. And I think the Bulls could get some decent assets for Zach LaVine. But the problem is it's going to be that contract where maybe the Bulls won't get as much as they had hoped for in a trade return. But Zach LaVine still has a valuable skill set as an on-ball scorer, an off-ball scorer, and on a contender that already has, two established stars or an established team in a system. I think Zach LaVine could fit, but it's time for the Bulls to move on. Then number 3, I would actually have Jevon Carter here, and he can't be traded till after the December 15th trade deadline, but he's not getting as many minutes per game as he was in Milwaukee. His shooting numbers are down a little bit, and I don't quite understand why he isn't getting more minutes, considering the Bulls signed him to, a 3-year contract over the summer. The 3rd year has a player option. I just wouldn't have that money tied up on my books going forward if I was rebuilding the team. I would trade him before the deadline because I think, like with Caruso, every contender is going to want a hellhound defensively and somebody that could hit open shots. And Jevon Carter can handle the ball a little bit too. He played really well for Milwaukee last year and is kind of not producing the same in Chicago. So I just wouldn't have that money tied forward. So I'd have Jevon Carter 3rd. 4th here, I would go with DeMar DeRozan. I think with his expiring contract, even though the number is high, he would still be relatively not easy to move, but definitely a flyer that a team like the Miami Heat or the New York Knicks, like The Athletic recently reported, would be a team of preference for DeRozan, could take a swing on. DeRozan is still one of the better mid-range shooters in the NBA, and of course, since his time in San Antonio, he has been one of the more underrated playmakers in the NBA, and they wouldn't get a big return for DeRozan, but they would still get something. Because, and I'm just going off of assumptions here, I imagine DeRozan won't be on the Chicago Bulls when the 2024-25 season starts. Those top 4 guys that I mentioned, those would be guys I would trade first so I could give guys like Kobe White more run, Ayo Dosunmu more run, Patrick Williams more run. Give your 18th pick last year, Dalen Terry, more run. The Bulls should just be focused on blowing it up, collecting assets from good vets that they have, but of course don't fit together, and just let the young guys rock and just see what you have. Even with Patrick Williams, where he started off slow but has been playing better as of late, let's see what he looks like with way more touches. And then if a team is willing to give him a crazy ass offer sheet in the offseason, the Bulls could just wipe their hands free, or they could work out like a sign and trade type of thing with him. I don't know the exact scenarios, but give Patrick Williams more time and don't sell low on him. And I know what you're thinking, what about Nikola Vucevic, who is the remaining part of the quote-unquote big 3? His contract isn't as bad, but he's 33. No one's going to want Nikola Vucevic, so you might as well just have him there because, he can at least make some plays from the elbow area, and the Bulls are going to stink anyway, whether they have Vucevic or not. So at least you can have a veteran there that could play and maybe help out the Bulls a little bit. He's not going to commandeer the ball as much. I don't know. I just don't think you'd be able to move that contract. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you can move him. I'm open to being wrong, but I just don't think that contract is movable, nor do I see any teams that would want Vucevic. But either way, you trade those top 4 guys and you get assets back. You let the younger guys roll and you have the starting foundation to at least start a rebuild. And I hope the front office, for the fans' sake, actually goes through with a rebuild.